Massachusetts has the most restrictive late fee framework in the entire country, with a mandatory 30-day grace period that fundamentally changes how late fees work compared to every other state. The governing law is found in Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 186, Section 15B, along with the state's Strong Consumer Protection Statute, Chapter 93A. If you're a landlord or tenant in Massachusetts, the late fee rules are unique and the consequences of noncompliance are severe. Let's start with the most important rule. Massachusetts requires a 30-day grace period. Under MGL, Chapter 186, Section 15B, a landlord cannot impose a late fee until the rent is 30 days or more past due. If rent is due on the 1st, the late fee cannot be charged until the 1st of the following month. 30 full days. This is by far the longest mandatory grace period in the country. Rhode Island's 15 days is the next longest, and Massachusetts doubles it. The 30-day grace period means that a tenant who pays on the 29th, nearly a full month after the due date, is not late under Massachusetts law. The landlord cannot charge any fee, any penalty, or any additional charge for the entire 30-day window. The practical impact is enormous. In most states, a landlord can charge a late fee after 3 to 5 days. In Massachusetts, the landlord absorbs a full month of delayed payment before any fee can be imposed. This fundamentally changes the late fee calculation, because by the time the fee kicks in, the tenant is essentially a full month behind. Massachusetts does not specify a statutory dollar cap or percentage cap on the late fee itself, but the reasonableness standard applies with particular force. Under the same section, the fee must be reasonable. Given that the tenant has already been given 30 days to pay, during which the landlord has absorbed the full cost of the delayed payment, the actual additional damages from the continued delay beyond 30 days are limited. This makes it very difficult to justify a large fee. Massachusetts courts have generally held that fees in the range of a modest flat amount, roughly corresponding to the landlord's actual administrative costs, are reasonable. Fees that significantly exceed documented costs face challenge under both the reasonableness standard and Chapter 93A. Chapter 93A, Massachusetts Consumer Protection Statute, is one of the most powerful in the nation. Section 9 provides that consumers can bring private actions for unfair or deceptive practices. The statute provides for treble damages, 3 times the actual damages, plus attorney's fees and costs. A late fee that violates the 30-day grace period, or that is unreasonable, can constitute an unfair practice under Chapter 93A, exposing the landlord to triple the overcharge plus the tenant's legal costs. This treble damages exposure changes the risk calculation dramatically. A $50 overcharge that triggers Chapter 93A liability becomes $150 in damages plus potentially thousands in attorney's fees. Massachusetts landlords who charge late fees before the 30-day period expires, or who charge excessive fees, face financial exposure far exceeding the fee itself. The lease must clearly state the late fee terms. The fee amount, the 30-day grace period, and the conditions for imposing the fee must be documented in the rental agreement. A late fee that isn't specified in the lease is not enforceable. Compounding late fees in Massachusetts face heightened scrutiny given the 30-day grace period context. Since the fee can't begin until day 31, any compounding charges would begin late and accumulate over a short window before the next month's rent is due. A daily fee starting on day 31 that runs until the next rent due date has at most a few days to accumulate. Most Massachusetts landlords charge a single modest fee after the 30-day period. Compounding structures add complexity and risk without meaningful benefit. The interaction between late fees and the eviction process in Massachusetts is shaped by the state's strong tenant protections. Massachusetts requires a 14-day notice for non-payment before the landlord can file for eviction. The notice must accurately state the rent owed, and late fees must be handled carefully. Massachusetts housing courts, particularly the Boston, Worcester, and Springfield divisions, scrutinize eviction filings in detail. Tenant representation through legal aid organizations is common, and represented tenants routinely challenge fee calculations. Including non-compliant late fees in the demand gives the tenant's attorney grounds to contest the case. Massachusetts also provides significant redemption rights. the tenant can pay all rent owed and stop the eviction at various stages of the proceedings. The redemption amount must be accurate. Including excessive late fees in the redemption amount creates a dispute that delays resolution. Massachusetts has strict security deposit rules under Section 15B. The deposit is limited to 1 month's rent. First month, last month, security deposit, and the cost of a new lock are the only amounts a landlord can collect at the beginning of a tenancy. The deposit must be held in a separate interest-bearing account, and the landlord must provide a receipt with the bank name and account number. The deposit must be returned within 30 days with an itemized statement of deductions. Unpaid late fees that comply with the 30-day grace period and the reasonableness standard can be deducted, but given the strict deposit rules, every deduction is subject to scrutiny. Failure to comply with Massachusetts' detailed security deposit requirements can result in the landlord being liable for 3 times the deposit amount plus attorney's fees. Massachusetts security deposit law is one of the most heavily litigated areas of landlord-tenant law in the state. Massachusetts' rent control history adds context. Boston, Cambridge, and Brookline had rent control until it was eliminated by statewide referendum in 1994. While rent control no longer exists, the political and legal culture in these communities remains strongly tenant protective. Late fee enforcement in Boston and Cambridge is subject to heightened scrutiny from courts, tenant advocates, and legal aid organizations. For tenants receiving housing choice voucher assistance, common in Massachusetts urban areas, landlords cannot charge late fees when the housing authority's portion is delayed. Massachusetts prohibits source of income discrimination under state law. Landlords cannot refuse to rent to or discriminate against tenants based on their use of vouchers or other lawful income. Penalizing a voucher tenant for the authority's processing delay creates both a late fee violation and a discrimination claim. Massachusetts does not have a significant active-duty military population. No major installations are located in the state. However, several military facilities, including Hanscom Air Force Base, the Coast Guard Station in Boston, and various reserve facilities, generate some defense-related demand. The SCRA applies to any active-duty service member renting in Massachusetts. From a practical standpoint, the 30-day grace period makes late fees nearly irrelevant as a revenue source or behavioral tool in Massachusetts. Boston is the state's dominant rental market, one of the most expensive in the country. Rents in desirable Boston neighborhoods commonly range from $2,500 to $4,000. A modest late fee charged after 30 days of non-payment represents a tiny fraction of the monthly obligation, far too small to influence tenant behavior. For Boston landlords, the 30-day grace period means that late fee enforcement essentially doesn't begin until the tenant is a full month behind. By that point, the landlord is typically already in the process of sending formal notices and evaluating whether to pursue eviction. The late fee is an afterthought. The real concern is recovering the unpaid rent itself. Cambridge has similarly expensive rents driven by Harvard, MIT, and the biotechnology corridor. Somerville, Brookline, and the inner suburbs share Boston's high-cost dynamics. Worcester, the state's second-largest city, has a more affordable market but still follows the same 30-day grace period. Springfield, Lowell, New Bedford, Fall River, and other gateway cities have more affordable rents and higher proportions of lower-income tenants. The 30-day grace period provides particularly important protection in these communities where tenants may have limited financial buffers. College towns, Amherst, Northampton, the Five Colleges area, have student-influenced markets. The 30-day grace period means that financial aid processing delays, which typically resolve within 2 weeks, never trigger a late fee for students. Cape Cod and the islands have seasonal markets where the 30-day grace period applies to year-round rentals. Seasonal leases have their own dynamics. One best practice for Massachusetts landlords: accept that the 30-day grace period makes late fees a nominal tool. Do not structure your business model around late fee income. It will be minimal. Focus instead on thorough tenant screening to select tenants who pay on time, clear communication when payment is delayed, and efficient eviction procedures when a tenant genuinely cannot or will not pay. Another best practice: never charge a late fee before day 31. This is the single most important compliance rule in Massachusetts. Any fee charged on day 29, even day 30, violates the statute and triggers Chapter 93A exposure. Set your system to flag day 31 as the absolute earliest trigger date. Build in a buffer. Charge on day 32 or 33 to eliminate any risk of a calculation error. A third best practice: keep your late fee modest and document your actual costs. Given the 30-day grace period, your actual additional damages from the delay beyond 30 days are limited. The major cost was already absorbed during the grace period. A fee of $25 to $50 is typical and defensible. A fee of $100 or more on top of a 30-day grace period is hard to justify as reasonable and invites a Chapter 93A claim with treble damages. For the complete guide to Massachusetts late fee laws, visit tenantscreeningbackgroundcheck.com. Subscribe to our channel for every state in our late fee law series.